Welcome back. It's a little bit windy today, so I'll try and get cover for you. Lighting's going to be a bit of a nightmare as well. It's cloud, it's windy, it's in and out, it's bright then it's not bright, so I'll do my best over the course of the video to keep it as clean as possible. Anyway, I've got a viewer's question today. Okay, so that viewer was Sarah Jane, and she asks, I'll put it up on the screen for you, what was your first experience of mediumship? Both first experience with your team and then with a spirit. There is a bigger question, but that's the one I'm going to answer today. So it's very, very hard to describe the first, really. It was a while ago now. And the problem you have is that as you go through your experience, it's to the level of your comprehension, isn't it? So what you've been taught or what you believe to be your solid foundation obviously evolves over time, like anything, isn't it? And so the memory I hold is one of slight naivety. I don't really want to change that memory, so that's the memory I'll share with you today. But there will be things that have changed now, and a different understanding. So I'll do it from the memory and what I believed at that time and the experience that I had. So there's various angles that the spirit world or mediumship presented itself to me. One instance was I was very fearful of a spirit world, bad spirits as such. Had a lot of things going wrong in my world, in my reality, in my home, noises, bumps in the night, that sort of stuff. So I turned to someone. I asked for help, how can I get rid of this bad spirit, so on and so forth. To which the medium, in this instance, suggested to me that within the next year, they did give me a date, I can't remember the date, but they did suggest to me that that I would start working with the spirit world. So this story is going to sort of just jump about all over the place, I'd imagine, as I go along. Let me try and adjust that light. Because mediums that tell people that they're going to work for the spirit world, rightfully or wrongfully, is it's up for debate, isn't it? But that thought, that idea, will immediately open the consciousness as such to look for it or maybe accept it a little bit more freely. And because of this, the spirit world can then be known. When I finally find the right light, the wind picks up. It's just a bit of a mission, this one today, to get it recorded. So as I suggested at the start of the video, there was elements of me that was naive or not really understanding, so I approached mediumship like anyone else would, I would imagine. And so I was scared. I was fearful. I wouldn't know if it was the right thing to do. Should I be contacting them? Should I leave and be, and all that kind of nonsense that goes on with it. A very normal way of thinking, I imagine. And so my first experience, to the viewer that asked, was one where I had been to demonstrations but wasn't convinced, and I just didn't like the demonstrators at the time, I suppose, or they didn't give me a sense or a feeling of the spirit world being present until I heard of circles, so practice ground for mediumship. So that is when I probably, from memory, was introduced to my spirit team. So again, this was an exciting time, like, oh, I've got circles tonight and I wonder what's going to happen, sort of 3, 4, 5 weeks into it. And it was something that was very changing, I suppose, life-changing in essence. But I would say maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks into that, a lot of it seemed not to make sense to me. Like this visualization of grounding and protection all of this sort of stuff didn't really make sense to me, and I had no knowledge of the spirit world, but the little that I did was kind of like, my sister's in the spirit world. I'm trying to find her. I'm trying to have communication with her, because that was the reason I got into mediumship. And here I am protecting myself from her, and grounding, and it just seemed like a lot of rituals to begin with, and it was just something that I wasn't really into, and I'd seen some like horror stories in that first 3 or 4 months, I would imagine, of circles and mediumship, with some stories of people being possessed and not grounding properly, that they took people home with them, and I mean, the nonsense you hear, it literally scares the life out of you. And it's one of those things that a lot of the time, especially in that first sort of 2 or 3 months, just considered just leaving it alone. It was too dangerous, and it's not something that I needed in my world. My world wasn't the most comfortable. I had a lot going on at the time, and I didn't need another ingredient that was going to cause havoc as such. So very much in the balance there, whether I continued or not. So my first experience with my team was one of battle, really, and what I mean by that is that didn't quite know if it was my imagination, didn't know if it was me putting it there, or am I willing this to happen, and I am aware of someone or something, and mediums prior to that were giving me like some sort of instruction of some sort of Chinese man, Oriental, which kind of led me into looking in the wrong place for a spirit team, because I can feel a female there, but that medium, that professional, he's told me it's an Oriental man, so I must be making it up. And that's the dangers, I suppose, when we give guides out publicly, isn't it? And I fell victim straight away, because I was pushing back what I was aware of, and through the process of someone telling me what I should be finding and what I should be doing, turns out they were completely wrong, and I spent 3-4 months pushing back my own awareness, because I was listening to someone that should know. But I think we've all fallen in that trap, haven't we? I think my favourite first memory of talking to my team, not being aware of them, but talking to them, like trying to put the idea out there for them to sort of pick up, was late one night in my front room, and I waited for my partner to go to bed. I said, yeah, I'll be up in a minute. So I double checked, like, have they gone to bed? Are they? Is the door shut? I slowly shut the front door, the living room door. And I remember sitting down and looking around and checking. Right, there's nothing here. There's nothing going on. And let me adjust that light for you. Nothing going on. And then I remember sort of like pointing to the ceiling, right, you lot. No, I didn't have a name, or I didn't, I hadn't even been fully aware of them yet. I hadn't warned them in the way that I do now. And I remember sort of pointing to the ceiling and saying to them, right, you got 1 year. I'm going through this whole process of learning energy, grounding and protecting and closing, and I'm looking for like communication. I'm looking for like intelligence, and it's rather amusing when I think back of this image of me sitting down very late at night talking to the ceiling. You got 1 year. You prove to me that you're there, then I'll dedicate my life to it. And here I am today with my life dedicated to it. I think the memory I hold the most of coming into contact with the team was in a small spiritual church, and I was sitting in what we would know as like an awareness circle, you know, sort of feeling energy and that kind of thing. And it's really not my thing, you know. I learned very, very quickly what I wanted to invest my time in and what I didn't want to invest my time in. And that kind of thing for me just didn't sit right for me, you know. But anyway, I digress. And so that medium that I told you about, where they said to me, you know, you'll work with the spirit world one day. Within a year, they tell me within a year. And as I said, naively, with my understanding, I was like, right, okay, whatever. Not really interested, but whatever. Sitting in that awareness circle, it felt like someone grabbed my arm. It felt like someone was trying to lift me out the chair, you know, like hold my hand to walk me to somewhere. And that part of the room was very dark. They walked me, what I felt like they walked me, just with a pressure, like a hand on my arm, and wherever it felt like it was tugging towards, I would follow. And it led me to a bookcase. The bookcase was in darkness in a corner of this room, and my hand rose. I grabbed a book, couldn't see, asked someone to turn the light on, and it was the book of the medium that told me I would be a medium within a year. So guided, who knows? You know, it's the way I hold the memory is a fond one, obviously, but you know, I have different ideas now, and I like to keep the memory as it is, just one of those weird scenarios. So that would be the first encounter that I had with my team, and very quickly it progressed over time, very, very quickly. It was things I would start sitting for them every Monday night, and I would ask for different emotions, different mind journeys, so on and so forth. I've done a video on that called Develop on My Own. And that is where I really started to build up the relationship that I have with the spirit world. So in answer to the second part of the question, you know, like when was my first encounter with the spirit world, it would have to be in that same circle, in that same group. And quite a funny scenario, really. Really windy here, my apologies if the sound's out. I was watching for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, you know, the other developing mediums, the other circle members within the group there, and I was watching them describe clothing or the way someone's hair looked, or you know, all that kind of stuff. I was very aware of this very descriptive kind of checklist style of mediumship. And very quickly, I could almost dial it in very, very early on, the difference between my imagination and that of a communicator. But I was only 5 or 6 weeks in, so I wasn't 100% confident in myself. It just felt different. It just, you know, it didn't distort the way an imagination can. The example I always use there is if I ask you to picture a forest, but it's a cloudy day, and there's lots of wildlife now, and you can see a bench at the end, and so your imagination starts to plant these these bits into the story. As I speak it, it adjusts and morphs into the idea that I am presenting you. Whereas spirit communication never done that. If I had to talk about them wearing glasses, if I had the thoughts in my head that they didn't wear glasses, and the glasses didn't go away, then I knew the glasses was something that was beyond my imagination. So basically what I'm saying is the intelligence of the communication. So the memory I hold of that communication is one that I hold very fondly. For 3 or 4 weeks, the same communicator, every time I went into class, the same communicator was there. Like they were waiting. And so what happened was I had a very good idea of what it is this communicator wanted me to say. I recognised her every time I turned up, and it's 3 or 4 weeks on the bounce now, so it was something that I knew couldn't be my imagination, because every time she presented new information, same image, just new information, whether that be sensory, emotional, whatever, that I knew that I had to give this off at some point. And it was on about the 8th or 9th week of that group that every single person in that group had to go on platform, do like a student dem for the class. And so I just described what I had. And to this day I still remember that communication very, very clearly, and every bit of information was taken. And so what that done for me was dialed in that feeling. Is it imagination or is it communication? I dealt with that quite early on, so I knew the difference. It felt different to me. So that would be my account of meeting spirit for the first time. One thing I think I would like to share with you guys is that relationship with the spirit world I have developed over year after year after year, and that has definitely progressed, or I feel more confident in the ability to having that discussion or that blending with said spirit team. But what I am also mindful of is that how that first spirit communicator felt day one, that hasn't changed at all. Like even now, and I'm sort of 10 years down the line, maybe 11 years down the line now, and that hasn't changed at all. Now what has changed is the flow. It's not so bitty. It is fluid. It's more fluid. I'm not fumbling around my statements, and I'm not sort of doubting myself or anything like that. All of those things have increased. That's development, isn't it? How to cut out the pause, how to stop repeating yourself, how to deliver a checklist of information, how to get rid of that checklist of information. All of that obviously evolves as time goes on. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the way that spirit feels when I'm going in for the communication. That has never changed, not even in the slightest. If anything, it's got more subtle because I'm using more resources to go for deeper statements or more profound evidence. But that's never changed. And I think people, while developing, are looking for this improvement everywhere, in the connection, in the clarity, in all of that kind of stuff. And I think the attention is placed in the wrong area. I think what you're being taught, or the lesson is that faith aspect. And when your mind moves, you go with it, and you say it, and you deliver it, but you've learned to deliver it in a presentable way. I think that's the evolution of your faith, the growth in your faith, your trust in your spirit world, or in your spirit team, in your mediumship ability. And I feel like that's just got to go on the back end of this video for some reason. I think people look in the wrong places sometimes for their mediumship. it hasn't changed from day one to now. My faith has changed, my trust has changed, my presentation has changed, but that initial blending when my mind moves to the spirit world, unchanged. Maybe look at that in your mediumship also. Well, it's getting really windy now, so audio, I'll be lucky if the audio has been saved on this one. Unfortunate. What I also need to point out is that I know my story isn't elaborate. I know some of these professional mediums out there that have their books and have their channels and all that kind of stuff, and they've got some profound story like, we were walking through the field when a knight walked up to me and told me his name and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not so sure. Maybe it did happen that way. But what that does for the student, the people that go under the wing of these professionals, is they don't have that kind of story. You're left feeling like maybe I ain't got it like they've got it. You're left feeling like I will never be as good as that person, or I can't do it as good as that medium. And so I'd maybe put the question out there into the air, into the ether. You know, was the story made up so you thought that? Does it place said medium on pedestal? Does it give them an overall power there? In most cases, the answer is yes, which is very, very unfortunate, isn't it? I don't have an elaborate story. I embarked on the spirit world to meet a team, to meet communicators, to meet the spirit, because I lost someone to spirit. And so I wanted to know where she had gone. You know, I miss her. And I wanted to know where she was at. Was she safe? Was she in a good place now? And that reason alone was the reason I started going into the spirit world. I never wanted the stage. I never wanted to do one-to-one readings. I never wanted to teach people or be in the public eye. I didn't want those things. They've just come along on this journey that I call mediumship. So, you know, what I really encourage is the logical aspect. You know, the spirit world is amazing, and to use Silver Birch's words, you know, if anything at all insults your reason, then throw it away. Then maybe it's not from the spirit world. And those words have stuck with me throughout my journey, and so I'm passing them on to you. If anything, for any reason, insults your intelligence or your reason, then don't accept it. The same way I didn't like grounding, didn't like passing energy balls around a room, I didn't like opening and closing, I didn't like 45 minutes of meditation before a class. And so this spirit world, the world of intelligence, of consciousness, but they need us to jump through hoops and do all of these things prior, doesn't sit right with me. So I'm going to round this one up. If you like the video, like it, comment, of course. I want your experiences or your views on the video because it helps the engagement on the channel. Subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.